Hey, do you want to know how to arrange beats on the OPZ? Well, stay on, cause that's exactly what we're gonna do. How's it going, everybody? You know who it is. My name is Soooo, and today I'm gonna show you how I arrange beats on the OPZ. I got a loop here which I made in my last video, should be linked right up there. Let's first listen to this loop and then listen to the single tracks that the loop consists of to better understand how to arrange our beat. Alright, we start with the loop. Alright, a nice loop, many elements that can be taken out and altered in order to make a nice arrangement. Let's listen to the single elements. First of all, we got our main melody. Wonderful. Then we got a little arpeggiator glitchy sound. Then we got a pad-like sound on the lead track. Alright, then we got our bass line, which is played with a single note sample. Then we got our sample. And then from this sample we derive our tape track, because as you see the tape track is only affected by the sample, or only takes audio from the sample rather. So let's play our sample track and the tape track. And now our hi-hat. And the snare drum. And our kick drums. So far so good, but how do we arrange it now? Well, I think there are two main tools for arrangement on the OPZ. First of all, the mute function. To get our basic arrangement, we are going to use the mute function. We're going to take out instruments, bring them back in, and so on. Yeah, which will create our basic arrangement. And then there are the punch-in effects, which in my opinion are an amazing tool to create transitions or just, yeah, add a little bit more excitement to your basic arrangement. In this case, I'm gonna start by doing all the mutes first and then add my punch-in effects, because it's easier to show you in the timeline what's going on. Usually I would do them both at once, so I go pattern by pattern. First pattern, add my mutes, add my punch-in effects, then go to the next pattern and so on. But this time I'm gonna start going through all the patterns with my mutes and then going through all the patterns with my punch-in effects. Alright, speaking of patterns, each pattern, as you know, consists of many tracks, and each track can have a different length set to it. you can set the length of a pattern by holding down the track button and shift, and then pressing these black numbered keys right here. In order to select a length for our pattern, we just simply have to choose our longest track length. So the longest track length defines our pattern length. And this is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to use the punch in effects track for that, because I'm going to be using this track right now anyway. So I'm going to define my longest track length right there, and therefore define my pattern length. So I'm going to hold down track, shift, and I'm going to select 8. Because this beat is double timed at 160 BPM, but actually it's an 80 BPM beat, the 8 means that it's 4 bars long. Because it's double timed, gotta half it. It's a 4 bar long pattern, and 4 bars is a good length, I think, for hip hop beats to do change ups and to segment the beat into. Alright, so we got our main pattern, we got the length set. Now we will copy this over many times and then apply our changes. Pattern number 1 is gonna be our intro. An intro should allude to what the main theme of the beat is maybe, but not give away too much. So we're gonna start by having our main melody play. I'm going to turn the tape track off, I'm going to turn the ARP track off, I'm going to turn the lead track off, I'm going to turn the bass line off, I'm going to leave the sample in, I am going to leave the hi-hats in, and I think I want to introduce the kick drum and the snare drum at the end of the pattern, which means that I will leave it in for now, and then later on I'm going to have to duck it using, or duck or mute it using the punch in effects. But for now I'm gonna manually mute them just to give an idea what it will sound like, and bring them back in at the end. So this is what our intro will sound like without punch in effects and all the fancy stuff, but just using the mutes. Alright, this is our intro so far. Now we move on to our next pattern, pattern number 2, which will be the start of our verse. So yeah, it's the start of our verse. We want to start slowly, not too many instruments, so we can slowly build up momentum of the beat and increase the tension. So we're going to start with our kick active, our snare active, our hi-hat, the sample, and we are going to introduce the bass line and drop the main melody so we don't get bored of it. And this is what it's going to sound like. Alright, we move on to the next pattern already, pattern number 3. Again, we slowly want to increase tension, so all I'm gonna add this time is the tape track, and this is what it sounds like. Very simple. And pattern number 2, we are still in the verse. We're gonna introduce another instrument, which is our pad-like sound on the lead track. Everything else stays in for now. This is what it sounds like. And now we come to pattern number 5, which is the end of our verse before the chorus, and usually I like to do a little breakdown there in order to catch the listener's attention and let them know, okay, there's something gonna happen. So I like to take a lot of things out and kind of yeah, cool things down before the chorus hits. So we're gonna do this by taking out the kick drum and the bass line, which are kind of leading instruments in our verse. And I'm not gonna have the arpeggiator play. And I think I can leave it at that. Yeah. Let's hear it. Alright, next pattern will be our chorus. The only thing I'm going to take out here is the arpeggiator. I want to keep that as a little tool later on to make it sound like things are changing. So this is our chorus then. Alright, next pattern. After our chorus, we are going to go back into another verse. After the chorus, I also like to break things down again, calm them down. So what we're going to do is take out the kick drum. We're going to leave in the snare. We're going to leave in the hat. We're going to leave in the sample. Have the bass play. Maybe introduce the arp. Have the lead cut out. And gonna leave the main melody playing for a short while and take the tape track out. Alright, let's hear it. And next pattern. Again, we're still in the verse. We want to gather momentum now. So we're going to do this by reintroducing the kick drum. Of course, the snare is going to play, the hat is going to play, the sample is going to play, the bass is going to play, and the arpeggiator is going to play. But the melody is going to be dropped now, and the tape is not going to play. And this is what it sounds like. Alright, next pattern is the third pattern of our second verse, and again we want to increase momentum, so we are going to add another instrument, which is going to be the tape track. Again, we're going to take the melody out, we're going to take the lead synth out, and this is what it sounds like. Simple as that. Now we move on to yet another pattern, which is going to be the last pattern of our second verse. And again, I want to cool things down just before the chorus hits to get a better payoff when the chorus hits. And we're going to do this by, first of all, we're going to leave in the kick and the snare. But maybe I'm gonna mute the snare until a later point using the punch-in effects again, but for now we leave it in. I'm also gonna do the same with the hi-hat, but again, for now we leave it in. We're gonna leave in the sample. We're gonna take out the bass line, which I always like to do before a chorus. And we're gonna take the lead synth out. We're gonna take the arp track out. We're gonna leave on the chords, or rather, we introduce the chords now with the main melody, and we're going to leave in the tape track. So I'm just going to manually mute the snare and the hi-hat as I would like it to be with the punch-in effects for now. Let's hear what it would sound like. And that's it. After that, again, we are gonna have the chorus hit. And this time the chorus is gonna contain every single track we have on offer, sounding like this. I will have the chorus play longer, so it's gonna be longer than just 4 bars. Most likely I want both choruses to be at least 8 bars long, and maybe the last one have a double chorus. I'm gonna change that later, so don't worry about that. And after the last chorus we are gonna move to our outro, which of course is gonna signify, okay, things are over now, let's calm down everybody. And in the outro I don't want my drums to be playing, I don't want my bass line to be playing. I'm also gonna take out the tape track and maybe have one snare hit at the end, which I'm gonna, again with the punch in effect, mute throughout and then have only hit at the end. But now I'm gonna do it manually to show you what it will sound like. Whoops, and that's it then. Well, so this is our main structure in terms of mutes, which you hopefully can see up there. And now let's get into the punch-in effects and make some nice transitions and just make this thing more interesting. So we go back to our intro. So in our intro there's an easy trick I also like to use before we get into the punch-in effects actually. We go to our master track and here we can apply a filter to all of the tracks. Yeah, it's not very often useful, but I think for intros and outros you can use it very well because yeah, it just makes the sound more washed out in some way. So that is what we're gonna do now. Alright, so I'm gonna apply a filter which I want to be opened on the last 4 steps. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna open the filter on these steps. Alright. And here it's completely open on 50. That's what I'm doing here. Then I'm gonna go to my punch-in effects. In terms of punch-in effects, I want to I said I want to duck some of my drums, but I want to duck them for different lengths. So I want the kick drum to come in here and the snare drum to come in here. So I need to use punch-in effects for single tracks, and you can do this by going to a specific track and then when recording pressing Shift, and these keys here will be punch-in effects affecting only the specific track you chosen, and these keys here will be punch-in effects applied to the group that that specific track is in. So if I select the kick drum track, these keys here will affect the kick drum track, the snare, the hat and the sample track. So this group here, if I selected the chords track for example, these keys would affect the chords track and these would affect all the synth tracks here, this group. So let's apply the ducking effect, meaning a mute effect, to our kick drum. And now we got this effect here. We can easily choose the length for it. As you can see, no key lights up. That's because it's a punch-in effect for a single track, but still I can use it, and I could even copy it over here if I wanted to and change its length. Now let's use the ducking effect on the snare drum as well. Now let's add something to our chords. Or actually we can add that to the whole synth lineup, because we don't have any other synth playing, so every decision we're gonna make on this group will be made to the chords track. So I want to add the filter sweep punch-in effect right here, as well as the echo effect as well. And now this is what our pattern sounds like. So moving from the intro to the first pattern of the verse, I don't need to make too many changes because the change from the intro to the verse is already quite significant. So I want to establish my main rhythm and don't want to distract the listener too much. But because the bass line is very repetitive, I'm going to make little changes there using the loop punch-in effects. So I'm gonna use the second loop feature right here and the first one right there, and let's hear it. As you can see, I'm very simply changing up the bass at the end of the 4 bars, because every fourth bar there should be a little change happening to not lose the listener's interest. Let's move on to the next pattern, pattern number 3, or the second pattern in verse number 1. This time I'm gonna do a little change up to the drums. I'm gonna mute them on the last step, shift it to the left slightly, so even the drums that are right on the step will be muted, because sometimes the mute kicks in a little too late if you put it just on the step itself. So that's why I shifted it to the left. And I'm also gonna introduce a little bit of the synth looping at the end manually. Let's see. And let's move on to our next pattern, pattern number 3 in our first verse. Actually, you know what? I'm not gonna make any changes with the punch-in effects in this pattern, because there are already changes when it comes to the instrumentation, so let's move on to the next pattern. Now, here it gets interesting again. This is the breakdown before the chorus, or the last pattern of our verse. So here we can do something fancy, and we start by changing up some things on single tracks first. So I'm gonna go into the hi-hat track first, and I'm gonna take out, I want to have less hi-hats in this pattern. Basically I'm gonna take this one out and have these, every second one, play only at the very end of this pattern. Yes, that's what I want. Now we go to our punch-in effects. First of all, I want to filter sweep the drums up until this point here. I want to pitch them down on the last step with this here, and also make them shorter and maybe something else. Okay, so I'm gonna put the pitch down here, the shorten, and this one there, yeah. And shift it a little bit to the left, because that's often a good practice with these. Now I'm going to go into my chord track, and because I want the chorus to hit with more energy, I don't want to have the melody play at the same pitch. So I'm going to pitch the chord track down 1 octave, so it plays at the lower octave, and then when it hits into the chorus, it hits harder because the notes are played higher, which seems more energetic than in this breakdown. And also I want to introduce a punch-in effect that's very interesting and that only exists on the single tracks, which is the follow punch-in effect. Because if you go to the punch-in effects track, that would be the echo punch-in effect track, but if you go to single tracks, it's the follow punch-in effect, and that one is very interesting because this means that the other tracks that are in the same group as the currently selected track will now follow the notes of this instrument. And since this is my main melody, now my bass line, my lead and my arp will follow that melody and play the same notes, and that is very cool if you want to have a energetic transition into your next pattern. So I'm going to introduce that relatively late in the pattern and have the other instruments follow my main melody. And I just set it randomly somewhere, but I'm going to put it now onto this step right here and have it play till the end. Alright, and this is our pre-chorus breakdown. Let's listen to it. Exactly, and that's where we're going to go into the chorus. And this is our chorus. Here I don't make many changes because we already have most of our instruments playing apart from the arp, which is quite exciting. So I will only make a very little change, which is a little drop of the drums right here at the end. So I'm going to duck those drums on that step, and I'm also going to make this pattern 16 bars long, so I'm just going to do this on my master track right now, holding track and shift, pressing the 9. Now it's 16 bars long, and yeah, let's listen to the little drop here. As you can see, just this little drop gives the whole thing a lot more energy and makes it very exciting at the turnaround of the 4 bars. And now we move on to the next pattern, which is again the start of our next verse. So at the start of this next verse, I would like to mute my snare and my hi-hat until late in the pattern. So I'm going to use punch-in effects on the single tracks again to do that. And I would also like to do some changes in the bass line, but we'll get to that in a second. First, let's do the ducking of the snare and the hi-hat. And now the hi-hat. And now go to our punch-in effects track and make this phase a little bit longer up until that point. And now let's go to the bass line. So the bass line has been playing for a very long time now. It's played through basically through the whole first verse and the chorus. So I want to make a significant change here. I am gonna change up this pattern a little bit and take some notes out. So first of all, I'm gonna take a few notes out. to simplify things. And I think, what is this one? I think I'm gonna put one here and one here. Have this play every second time. And I'm gonna elongate my notes a little bit because I've taken a few notes out. I don't want to leave too much empty space. That's why I'm making the bass notes a bit longer. Let's hear it. Very simple. All right, so next pattern is this one right here. I think actually I want to carry over the bass line from the previous pattern. So I'll go back, go to the bass line and copy the track over right here. Wonderful. And I'm taking out even more notes by having this one play only right at the end. Okay, now we get to our punch in effects. And I'm gonna duck the drums right here again. And I'm gonna echo the drums right here, I think. All right, let's hear it again. Alright, and moving on to the next pattern, which is pattern 3 of verse number 2. We're not going to make too many changes. Again, we are going to duck the drums right here and carry over our bass line from here. 2, 3, and right there. Yeah, this is what it sounds like. Wonderful. And now we get to our next pattern, which is again the breakdown just before the chorus hits. More changes come in here. So the changes I'm gonna do here is, again, I'm gonna pitch down my main melody just before the chorus in order to build up the momentum for the chorus. When it hits, it's paying off. So again, we got the main melody playing before the chorus. So I want to pitch down my main melody by an octave. So it was, instead of sounding like this, it will sound like this. All right, and also I want to duck my snare drum and my hi-hat for a while and only come in just before the chorus hits. So I'm gonna go to the respective tracks and again record the punch in effects for the single track. Same for the hi-hat. And now I'm gonna make this longer up until this point, and this is what it sounds like. Alright, again, the last chorus, we're going to keep it simple because we have all instruments playing and we don't want to distract from them too much. So I'm just going to do the little drop of the drums here at the end again and make sure that the pattern is 8 bars long. Actually, I want to have the last chorus 16 bars long, but I want to do a little change up during that. So I'm going to copy this chorus over. I don't have enough space here, so I'm going to do it over here. So this is going to be my second 8 bars of the last chorus. And oftentimes the last chorus, when it's a double chorus on a song, what you do is you play the chorus one time and then you pitch a lot of your instruments up by an octave on the repeat of the chorus to give it even more energy. So I'm just gonna pitch up my lead synth so it goes from sounding like this to this. And again, then we got the little drum thingy at the end. Alright, so our very last pattern is the outro, and I got my mutes done. Apart from the snare drum, which I want to mute up until the end. I'm gonna do that with the punch-in effect in a second. And I want to make sure that this one, yeah, I want to have this play at the same pitch as the last chorus. So I gotta pitch this up. Yep. And then I'm gonna duck my snare drum. Up until this point. Or up until this point, actually. Alright, and instead of just listening to the outro on its own, why don't we listen to the whole song in its entirety? And before we do so, I want to say thank you very much for watching this long video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, comment down below, let me know what you found interesting, what you didn't find interesting. Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for more videos. And now I'm gonna chain these patterns up and play them for you.